Alright guys, I decided to do a little rebuild video for you here. And yes, the setting is different than all the rest of my pictures because now we're down in my basement workshop. And this is what we're going to use. We've got some swabs, a couple of screwdrivers, a few ratchets, pliers, my magic solvent stuff, and not to forget the super lube. Always use super lube on SK ratchets. It's what comes from the factory. And blue towels, of course. Alright, so this 42-470 half-inch ratchet is going to be our first victim for the super teardown and rework. This one's already been taken apart, relubed, and put back together a couple times. But it's going to happen one more time, just because, so that we can get the video. So we start out nice and easy. We'll put that aside, we don't need that anymore. This guy is our subject, specifically this guy right here. When you take these guys apart, it says to grab them with chain nose pliers and a wiggle. Now this one is all sorts of greasy, so I'm just gonna wipe it down a little bit, give my pliers a little more purchase, because I really leave these guys upright when I do them. And that's just how I like to do it. Alright, so this one's being a little tough. There we go. You can see right here it started to separate. And what's happened is the pawl was in the center, I centered it up, and I gave it a wiggle and a little tug. And what this will expose as it comes up very, very slowly here is that there is a spring-loaded plunger inside the mechanism, and you got to wiggle it a little bit. It's kind of tough to get through because there's a detent back there where the pawl is, and you've got to get it just past. Oh, there we popped it out. So I don't know if you can see that way down inside there. The little spring plunger popped out. That's okay. We can grab him, I think, and pop him out, maybe. Will he come all the way out for us? Yeah, he came all the way out. Alright, that means this guy will come all the way out. Now buried inside there is a spring. Right down in there. There we go. There's the spring. That spring hasn't been out of there probably since this ratchet was made. Now a little quick bang brings the pivot pin out, and then out comes the pawl. Now you can see this pawl is pretty well greased, but it's also kind of filthy in there. I'm going to go ahead and just give this a wipe. Ugh. See, that's really not all that clean, actually. Not even a little bit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break from the video and spend a few minutes with my swabs and my solvent and everything else cleaning this guy up. And I'll be right back. Alright, we're back after a nice long cleaning session. About 2 hours in the solvent bath, washing around. Bunch of Q-tips, bunch of double-ended swabs, some scraping with a screwdriver, and now everything's pretty awesome and back together. Now it's time to reassemble. Now I like to use my little modified screwdriver tool here to swab all this because it's good stuff up. First one is the inner bore of the main casting here, all lubed up. Inner bore of the pivot pin. All lubed up. Just wipe it around a little bit. Get it all good and goopy. This will all wipe off in the end. The whole lower surface of the inside of the whole lower surface in here is important. The whole upper surface is also important. The pawl rides on this, and if it's not greased, the pawl will wear and your ratchet will become sloppy. That's probably, no, we'll put a little up here for the selector. That's going to go in a minute. Nothing too bad. Alright, that can just sit there. Next one will be a little tiny bit of grease in this hole here for the spring. The spring goes in the hole. A little more grease on top. And then the detent pin goes in the hole. And then a little bit of grease goes on the detent pin. Yeah, I know that's more than a little. That's okay, right? Close enough counts. Alright, we'll set that aside for a second because the next thing we have to do is put the pawl in. Now the pawl's already pretty well greased up from the inside, so we're just going to kind of give it a little poke there. And this one, chamfered end goes down. Done. Now we want this guy to be roughly centered. And here's the tricky part. Got to grease the rest of this up a little bit. I'm going to put some on the bottom just to be safe. Put a little on the sides here. A little on the front, a little on the side, a little dab will do ya. It's right there, right there. And what the heck, a little on the back. A little bit everywhere. And it's going to sit right about there. Now the trick with this is you have to push the pin in and then down. Now that pin is in pretty well. Nope, or not. All the way in. This one's giving me a little trouble. Okay. This pin doesn't want to go in that way. That's fine. Some of them don't want to go in from the top. They can go in from the side, just like he came out. Now this method is a little bit trickier. Just because of the nature of things. But it will snap eventually right into place. Perfect. Ta-da! Done. A little wipe down, get rid of all that extra super lube that squeezed out, and we're good.